I think the most important thing, especially if it's somebody that is new to the industry just in general, is get in the field and learn how to build. Be a builder first, and that will help. I mean, that will save you 10 to 20 years in your career path if you just go learn how to build first. So if that means you're starting off as an assistant project manager based in the field and on site, do it. Do it for a couple of years, right? Like, get per diem, go live on site, go be in the trailer every day, learn it, right? And that, to me, it helped me certainly with my career fast track, and I couldn't suggest that more for anybody that is interested, young in their careers, and getting into project management.
Welcome to Suns Out, where we believe that the solar industry can provide a brighter future for everyone. I'm Zach Simoneau. Here in a minute, we'll be sitting down with Chastain and a special guest, one of the senior project managers over at AES Clean Energy, Shea. I had the privilege of meeting Riley back in 2022, and we immediately hit it off. Primarily because he's just a genuinely good dude, but in addition to that, he also knows how to effectively manage projects. And so we appreciate him taking the time to sit down with us and unpack his career, as to like how he got to where he is today. And, he helps us understand, the things that go into becoming a successful project manager. Today's episode is brought to you by JVE Engineering. JVE is ran by Jim Gann. Jim Gann is one of the best engineers in the solar industry. JVE provides various technical support services from design packages to electrical studies, but most importantly, and this is how I got to know them, interconnection support, relay support. If you're having issues with relays, anything like that, you don't need to look any further. JVE is your team to, get you taken care of. I've personally witnessed JVE step in and, take on these complex problems that entire teams struggled to wrap their heads around. JVE handled it no problem. So I strongly suggest you reach out to them if you need any kind of electrical engineering technical services. You can reach them at james.gann@jve-e.com. That's james.gann, Gahan, at jve-e.com. You won't be disappointed. So stick around. This is a good episode. I think you'll enjoy it. First off, Riley, thanks for joining us, man. It's you're one of the few people that have actually told about the podcast. As far as the people at the company we work for, and to have somebody provide like genuine feedback has been certainly appreciated, and even more so, I appreciate you being willing to sit down and have this conversation with us, because like you've certainly worked yourself up to a significant place in AES, and I'm interested to find out like how you got there, like where you came from, and how you ended up in this, serious high-end project management position that you're in now. So take us all the way back, man. Like how'd you first get into the solar industry?
Well, it was definitely a long journey. I will start with saying I know that there's a lot of the Appalachian State, North Carolina solar crowd. I'm one of them. Proud App State grad. I never even considered, I started, I played 1 year of college football at a small school in North Carolina, Lenore University, nice. Hickory, North Carolina, D2 football. Got hurt, wanted to always be at App State. I was basically riding up 321 every weekend, that we weren't either playing football or, whatever, off weekends, riding up the mountain an hour to go visit friends and my now wife in Boone. So yeah, we were up there quite a bit, but then, so fast forward that 1 year at Lenore, I get into App State, and have really no idea what I wanted to study. Had a friend of mine come back. He's like, "Hey, man, there's this cool program, offshoot of the construction management program, appropriate technology." I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, IT?" um, computer stuff, and sure enough, he kind of broke it down for me. Construction management, kind of with a renewables focus, and it's like, all right, that sounds pretty cool. Took a couple classes, got into it immediately, and man, that program up there, just cannot say enough good things. It's the most just it's so hands on. I mean, you literally go. We had classes where we were wiring up, combiner boxes, or literally installing racking and modules on a shed that we built right outside our classroom, right outside Catherine Harper building. So that was my initial intrigue, right? And I started kind of every summer I got into. I basically tried to find internships and construction work every summer I was in college, and was able to do that. I didn't get started in solar right away. I worked with the landfill gas company out of Charlotte, North Carolina, small company. Owner actually lived up in Banner Elk, or Blowing Rock, excuse me. Owned a farm up in Blowing Rock, so kind of between Boone and Blowing Rock. Worked for him for 2 summers. Couple of times knee deep in landfills and trash juice, installing perforated pipe. Man, it was fun, but it was definitely pretty challenging and gross at times. But nonetheless, man, got to learn a lot about connected to the grid and PPAs and stuff like that early, which was cool. And then attended a career fair at App and got introduced to Whiting Turner commercial contracting. And of course I took an internship after school, took a full-time position with them as a senior field engineer, and completely went the opposite way of solar, right? I got into the commercial contracting world, and it was fun. I had a good time. It was, Sean, my first project as an intern, I was hired out of the Raleigh office, and we did the Liggett and Myers building in downtown Durham, the rebuild, the west. Yeah, it's a fun. Yeah. That was a fun project. That was my first ever commercial construction project. Was remodeling that building. That was a fun one.
That's not a small job either. Yeah.
No, and my scope of work as an intern was the windows on that building. I had all the glazing, and it's a retrofit, right? And you have to. It's a historical building, so you couldn't really tamper with the windows. They were all new windows, but they had to be this exact measurement. And we were in there trimming, just chipping little bricks off every single window on the entire building just to get it perfectly. Yeah, I could talk all day on that, but so yeah, I did that for 3 years. Moved to Charlotte, built a elementary school and the Deer Park Event Center on the Biltmore, and then my last project was a 10-story high-rise in downtown, and that was it. Did that on a quarter-acre plot of land in downtown Charlotte, and I was like, all right, I've got to do something different. And sure enough, found a couple different opportunities in the solar world. One was a small developer in Boulder, and then the other was Signal Energy, a project engineering role at Signal Energy, right? And my wife and I, we knew we'd grown up in Charlotte, lived in Charlotte our whole lives. We're back in Charlotte working full time. We knew we wanted a change. We weren't sure where, just like a change in location, right? As part of my transition into a new career. And it literally wound up, had both offers on the table from both companies, and we pulled up Zillow to see what cost of living for a rental was. We had one place in Boulder that we could afford, seriously, one place. And then we pulled up Chattanooga. We're like, okay, that's it. We can still have the mountains, and there's more than one place to choose from. in our budget.
Yeah, Chattanooga is like the East Coast Boulder. Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. No, we absolutely loved it. Loved living in Chattanooga. Still own our home there, and we can dive into the current journey later.
Yeah.
But no, my 3 years at Signal were incredible. Met and worked with some just incredible people there. Had some really tough jobs, but also got the chance to work with the likes of, the Scott Kriegers of the world, Derek Matheny, my direct boss who hired me there at Signal, Chad Deeker, is the man. Love that guy. He kind of elevated, he gave me opportunities and fast tracked and kind of opened doors that, maybe or may not have or should have been open, right? But took it and ran with it, and worked with Signal for 3 years. And then, kind of this time last year, we were finishing up our project in Mississippi, a little 100 megawatt literally in the Delta. The first build, own, transfer agreement in the country. That was interesting. Had good clients. It was what's that?
What is that? What is that? I'm not familiar with that.
So you've got the utility, and then you've got the developer, right? Okay. And so the developer, and I'll probably botch this, but the developer has the project technically and builds it and then transfers it to the utility. So they basically the developer is responsible for building it for the utility on their behalf, and the utility operates it in the end. So it's basically providing the utility like a turnkey site. And it was extremely challenging because obviously for all the different, warranties and transfer agreements and all that stuff, right? But it was tough to, define the lines between, okay, our contract's with developer, but this project's for utility. And so the utility is always wanting to step in, right? And reasonably so. It's their project, right? Developer kind of wipes their hands clean at COD. But, it learned a lot, right? And I think those types of agreements are going to continue to be the norm. I think we'll start seeing them a lot, Zach. It's so about this time last year, we were finishing that project in Mississippi and getting ready to actually start. I was doing all the pre-con on another project in Mississippi that was about 2 times the size, just outside of Jackson. And I just actually, Scott Krieger came calling, and him and I, when he was at Signal, and I'll get into pretty wild story there. When him and I were working together, I'll save that one, Zach. But
all right.
He came. He mentioned that kind of the growth of AES, where things are going with the clean energy sector of AES, and sounded extremely intriguing and kind of the right time to get in. And I knew, all right, I've done the EPC thing, I've done the general contracting thing, I've been in the field, I've been in the office now. What's the next kind of transition I can make in my career? And it was coming to the owner side, and being a PM on this side, and kind of learning the full business, right? Not just here's your project, go build it, right? But here's everything that goes into getting a project, tied into the grid, right? And then everything after. And so, that was the biggest, that was the transition that I wanted to make, and everything kind of fell into line about last June. So that's kind of the long story of how I wound up getting here.
Well, when you said you joined Signal, you took a job as a project engineer?
Yes. Yeah.
So
I was a project engineer.
Yeah, walk us through, because you're not a project engineer now. That is interesting. I didn't know that. So that explains a lot. That explains, why you're so into the technical side of this thing. So there's a little light bulb moment. But walk us through how you went from project engineering to project management. What was that process like?
Yeah, and so the project engineer title, maybe this will help clear things up because I am by no means an engineer. Um, I'm way too simple-minded for all that. But
Mm,
the project engineering role at Signal was, like a assistant project manager, right? And so
gotcha.
when I came in at Signal, we had a project down. I can't name clients, can I?
Hey, you can do whatever you want to, man. It's up to you, really.
Well, nonetheless, it was a client in Georgia, the main utility provider down there. So I think
Sure.
you can put two and two together, right? Had an
Yeah,
awesome
absolutely.
project for them, by the way. Shout out Jason Cannon. But so started this project down in Macon, Georgia. It's about a 130 megawatt project AC, um, and I started as a project engineer covering the structural and the mechanical scope of work, right? There were three of us. One of the other project engineers was covering civil, and then the third was covering electrical, right? All electrical. We didn't have the substation. Georgia Power was building that, right? So that's kind of how we split the scopes. Very quickly, I realized that, okay, I can apply what I was doing at Whiting Turner, field side construction management, into what we're doing here, right? And so I immediately kind of jumped in on like the scheduling calls and the planning, and kind of it was great running that mechanical scope of work because I got to be involved with civil and electrical. And so for me, learning, first project, getting thrown right into it, that was perfect for me because it just kind of I got to touch everything, right, as a PE, which that was not the intent of that position at the time. So fast forward, gosh, I started with Signal in June of 19. Fast forward about a year, that project itself mobilized Q1 of 2020, and September of 2020. So amidst COVID, and we're in our working from home, right, and kind of figuring everything out at that point. Uh, Scott is Scott has a position open up at S Power. Scott Krieger, that is, right, has that position open up at S Power. At the time, Scott Krieger was my project manager, so we had the three PEs underneath Scott Krieger, our PM, and had obviously built a great relationship with Scott, and we were, worked very well together. And when he mentioned that he was going to be moving on from Signal and taking this position at S Power, literally that same week, our civil project engineer also made the same announcement that he was going to be leaving Signal too. So right off the bat, within the same week, we were down two of our members, and we basically just had two project engineers, myself and my good buddy Joe Bray, who is one of the smartest in the industry too. But so Scott gives us 1 month. All right, I'm going to be out in 1 month. Have the conversation. Hey, Riley, you're going to step in as a interim PM, close out this project. Keep in mind at that point we were about 6 months. Project was on schedule. About 6-8 months out from COD, we were good, right? Like, hey, we're cruising here. Riley, take this thing over. Let's bring it home. Within that month, and this is the crazy story, I'll just go ahead and jump right into it. I'm down on site, called into pod. The first 5 minutes are just dead silence on pod. And keep in mind, Derek Matheny is my construction manager down here on this project in Macon, right? And so nobody's talking on pod. I give Derek a call. Hey man, what's going on? Because I like to listen to pod as I was driving in. I wasn't at the job site yet that particular morning, and Derek goes, "Hey man, we got some bomb threats going on down here."
What?
Everybody's getting to the muster point in the laydown area. Yeah, this is real. And he's like, if you're not here, don't come to the site, right? So I just turn around, go back to the hotel, try to sort out whatever's going on, right? Turn around to the hotel, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on, right? they're evacuating the fields. We're talking 1,000-acre job site, right? The bomb squad shows up. They have dogs. They go sniff all 1,000 acres, right, of this entire site and clear it. And we were actually able to get back to work that day. Come back in the next day, and another bomb threat.
Come
and
on.
This proceeded to continue to happen for, I think it was almost 2 weeks. It was like every other day. And then we stopped work, completely shut the site down for a couple of days, came back in that following week and got more bomb threats.
What?
Yeah, so it was clearly somebody who knew the site, knew what was going on, right? Or somebody around it, regardless, right? So that was kind of my first throws. And then keep in mind, of course, that I'm losing my project manager, and I'm trying to like figure out how to take this over and bring this thing to closure while in the midst of bomb threats. But nonetheless, yeah, wild story. We wound up having to hire bomb sniffing dogs and they would, every single car that came in to the job site, every single employee in the car had to get out of the car, get sniffed, patted down. They had the mirrors underneath the cars, and the dogs did the full 360 around every single car, every single morning. And this was September of 2020. I think we did that until the end of the year, because we started to kind of ramp back down at the end of the year. It started like all of our commissioning and stuff, right? So, yeah, that was a wild story. And in the meantime, that was my first introduction into being a project manager, because Scott was gone kind of after we got back on site, brought in these bomb sniffing dogs. Okay, hey Riley, Scott's gone. This is your project now. Bring it to close. So yeah, that was my throw into being a project manager. And so I went from PE to interim PM. I got promoted to a senior field engineer for about 2 months. and then my boss at the time, Chad Deeker, who I think I mentioned earlier, he came in and he's like, hey, we've got this project ramping up in Mississippi. I could hire a project manager from, a new hire, right? Or, do you feel comfortable being the PM on this project? And I did, at that point I was like, well, shoot, if I can handle bomb threats and still hit COD and close, very understaffed situation, all that, right? Then yeah, let's give it a shot. And it worked out. It was a tough project down there in the Mississippi Delta too, but yeah. So that was my first introduction. That was my first full project as a PM. And then and then Scott called this time last year, and that was at the time it was a, hey, you want to come on as a PM or a senior PM kind of thing. And I interviewed, and we decided senior would be the best fit. And he was like, oh, and by the way, you've got probably the two hardest projects that I've ever seen on paper up in Pennsylvania. There's going to be a ton of rock, and good luck.
Yeah, that's why they call it Rocksylvania. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I thought, it is beautiful up there, but I think I like the east side of the Appalachian Mountains a little bit more than the west. They treat me a little better.
Man. Yeah, those projects are insane, but like your project management career thus far has been intense.
Yes.
God.
Yeah.
And like I don't think we should get into all the specifics of what's going on up in Pennsylvania tonight, but It's just like, buddy, you need a vacation.
Well, it's funny you say that, because it's challenging, but I find it to be extremely rewarding. And I think the harder the challenge, getting over that challenge, the more rewarding it is, right? And it's almost kind of why I enjoy the challenge and I enjoy the harder projects, because when you get to the finish line, celebrating is that much more fun, right?
Yeah, but,
and I know that because of sports growing up, but if it weren't for those few years as a field engineer, superintendent in the commercial construction industry, man, that was tough, right? Like that every day was tough, right? And so I think that kind of molded me to come in and know, okay, well, if I can do that, then I can definitely handle these projects sitting in my comfortable office, going to site once a month. But it just gave me such an appreciation for the guys in the field. And I heard Tyler talk about it, kind of Moss's, how Moss is on the last episode at Field First. Man, that's my mentality as well. Because what are we, right? What are we if we're not supporting the guys in the field, right?
Right.
And making their lives as easy as possible. And it was definitely something I picked up on with my formative years at Whiting Turner, and then self-performing work at Signal, managing 150 people out on site every day. You gotta keep those guys happy, because if you don't, you're gonna lose them, right? And then you don't get your project bill on.
Yeah, that's something that I didn't even register as far as your entry into project management. It's like you're not just an EPC project management or project manager. You're self-perform, so you can't even just say, hey, go handle this, like, to the management of the mechanical team. You've got to speak with the mechanical team and keep everything running smoothly.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That was, though, I'll tell you, I enjoyed the self-performing of work more than subcontracting work, because, and maybe it's just me having the sports background and stuff like that, but I think the thing that I love most about what I do every day is getting to interact with people that I enjoy being with, but building teams, right? Like it's all for naught if I don't feel like there's a team mentality, that camaraderie. And maybe it's just the lack of sports. I've introduced that now to make up for it, right? But and so the self-performing side of it, that checked the box, right? I absolutely loved it, because we're out there at 5:30 in the morning doing stretch and flex, right? Watching the sun rise. Like, that is fun, man. And then when you go out and your crews bust out 150 piles in a day, one crew, man, you take them out to dinner, like, that's fun, right? So really enjoyed that stuff.
It's interesting, man, because, like, I'm just sitting here thinking, like, you played football. I've got another good friend of mine, Sean Henry, who was an excellent team player, one of the best safety people I've worked with, and he played college ball. Leah Jones is an ACC champion, and even like God, there's a trend there, and it's like these super athletes that also just help carry the solar industry. Like Sean, I don't even know if we've talked about it on this podcast or not, man, but like Sean is a pure masochist, bud. He runs he for a period of time ran 100-mile races, just like freak of an athlete, just insane.
Wow.
It's not smart, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
More power to you.
So, I mean, it's astounding that, like, I'm starting to see this trend here. Now it's like the best of the best are coming from all these different sports, and it makes so much sense because, like, the competitive drive and the sense of teamwork, that's the constant that we're seeing here. I love it. Didn't think I would be putting it together like that.
Well, a lot of it too is, being an athlete, practice makes perfect. So,
Right.
we were talking to Tyler about how hard he works to get to the next steps that he wants to be at. So, yeah, it has a lot to do with just putting in that time and effort just to get to where you want to be and be the best that you can be.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, if you don't pour into your people, right, it's not ever going to come back to you. And it takes effort, right? It takes so much effort to work your 60, 70 hour weeks and then also be, that person that the people that work for you can rely upon, right? Like I think that anybody that works for me knows that they can pick up the phone and call me really anytime with any issue, personal or work, and I've got their back. And so, but same as to be expected, right? Like if I needed something from somebody on my team, I know that I can call them and I know that I can rely upon them, right? So, but that's the atmosphere that I, as a leader, love to.
But that's that as far as being a leader, one thing that was kind of eye-opening to me when we started working together on these projects in Pennsylvania was your weekly call, and just all the different departments that you bring together for this weekly Great Cove call. And it's procurement, project management, construction management, quality, owner's engineer, project engineers. You've got legal involved there, and so it's just the eye-opening part is like there's so many different types of people that have to work together on a weekly basis. And I'm interested to hear from you, like, what does that look like, man? Like, what is your day-to-day looking like as far as all the different teams you have to interact with, like all the different responsibilities of a project manager? Like, how would you summarize what you have to do on a day-to-day?
Well, if it weren't for some level of meditation and mindfulness in the mornings, and of course working out, then I would be losing my mind. But I mean, quite honestly, for me, I'm extremely fortunate to have such a great, team below, right? Project managers, assistant project managers, construction managers, you, Zach, and Cy, and then our safety team. That makes it easy. So the day to day for me is really like, I keep my lists. I know the hot items that need to be touched and pushed. But it's really just checking in, right? I think with my project manager and my assistant project manager, we are constantly all day long talking, right? Teams chat and stuff like that. But my other big point of emphasis, and I almost consider it like the base level expectation of anybody that's on my team, is not just communicate, but over communicate, right? Like, and I say it a lot, but over communicate. And I don't care what it is. That makes my life easier. Yeah, I may get 150 emails a day, but at least I can see everything that's coming, right? And so, you asked about my day to day. It fluctuates, obviously,
Sure.
right? But what I can expect every day is that I'm getting my rundowns from my PM team. I'm getting my rundowns from my CM team. I know I can go to you, Zach, with anything, and just keep pushing forward on the important things that pop up. Really, that's the main driver. You focus on those 5 things and you prioritize. The rest kind of falls into place, right? And it's it's funny too, because I feel like so often, solar construction, and I'll get eaten alive for saying this. Solar construction it's an easy form of construction, right? Like it's all the parts and pieces, everything that we do is extremely challenging, right? Getting everything to site is extremely challenging. The quality, the commissioning, but like just building the solar project, that compared to all other high-rise construction, right? Like, I don't even. It's much easier. It's just creating that manufacturing line, right? But I think that just knowing the how to push and keep things moving forward is kind of where I aim to be on a daily and weekly basis, but while still trying to kind of keep like a 3 to 6 month out focus, right? Like not get trapped in the day-to-day portal.
Yeah, that's one thing that I always kind of wonder about, because it seems like, from my perspective, I'm in quality mode right now. So all I get to do is bring you problems,
Yeah.
like on a regular basis, and then I get to watch you deal with other problems coming from another angle, and it's just like, oh my God, is that all he has to do all day every day is just deal with one fire after another? And
Somebody's got to
so,
do it. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, we're professional problem solvers, right?
yeah, yeah,
There's and babysitters to a certain extent, but mostly problem solvers.
yeah,
But no, that for me that's the most fun part of like the actual job, right? Is the problem solving. The team building and all of that is just a function of it, but it's all kind of under that problem solving umbrella. And that's I think that anybody that truly loves being in construction can appreciate that, right? It's the rewarding feeling you get solving the problem, right?
yep.
Yep. You were talking about the difficult projects you were thrown into when you first started with AES, but when we talk about we don't talk about the projects that went perfectly and everything was smooth. We talk about the ones where it was where we had to fight hard just to get it across the finish line. So,
Yeah, I've honestly yet to ever have one of those easy, smooth construction projects, literally in my whole career. So maybe someday.
yeah, if you do, then there's always something waiting for you at the end. I promise. Yeah.
Like something's wrong here. This is going way too well.
Yep. Yeah.
What am I?
God, it's typically that performance test too. It's always something hidden in the performance test.
Yep, exactly.
Oh my God. Or sometimes, and unfortunately, we've talked about it a little bit too much on this podcast thus far. But it's been things that are right out in the open. Things that you just know are going to bite you at the end, and then you find yourself trying to beat it because you're right where you knew you were going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
Well,
what you said about over communicating. How you emphasize that. My 3 years as a PM, there's nothing worse than when someone asks you a question about your project and it's something that you had no idea about. So like something that maybe the crews just didn't mention to you. So yeah, it's nice to over communicate and be able to actually know what's going on the project, especially when a client hits you up and asks you a question.
Yep. Don't surprise me, right? Like
Right.
surprises are okay for birthdays or something like that, but I don't like surprises. At least say that you had an email out there, right? And then I can look like the dummy that didn't read it.
Right. Yeah.
I've got a question for both of you guys right now. What would you say has been some of the biggest challenges you faced recently being a project manager with the current state of things?
You want to go first, Sean?
Yeah, I'll say you have delays, but especially us, we worked for clients who had their own milestones to hit. So if you have unforeseen delays, then the clients are still pushing to hit those milestones, but there's not a lot you can do. And you're talking about performance testing. That's a big one because if you extend your milestones out, then performance testing, it seems like always something happens and you least expect it. So that's one of the big things that we deal with is just trying to communicate with the client and get on the same page. But it's difficult.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. It's tough to keep the client up to speed on everything that's when it's just constantly changing. And I feel like, 1 month I'll have my client meetings and, hey, here's this problem. Here's what we're doing to resolve it. And then we get on the next month and it's, okay, we resolved that problem, but now here's this problem, right? And all of these things, procurement related right now are just, it's like, it just seems to be the ultimate snowball. But I'll tell you what else is really hurting us, especially on the East Coast, is permitting, and especially around wildlife, right? We've got this new northern long-eared bat restrictions, right? And I know that it's being lobbied against, and the rulings kind of just they're fresh, and everybody's kind of working through their interpretations and whatnot. But in a very real sense, if we're not able to perform clearing and timbering in the heavy civil activities in the optimal months to do that work, we're not going to be able to build these projects, period. Right. And, Zach, our projects up in Pennsylvania, we have that other, it's the nesting dickcissel bird that's in that area, right? Regional bird that we already had a protection in place against, where we couldn't perform civil activities for, 4 or 5 months out of the year. Well, now you've got this new restriction with the northern long-eared bat that expands that to, I think it's almost 6 or 7 months, basically. So I guess what I'm getting at is you've got these projects now where if you can't perform in the most optimal time to perform, especially civil, right? Man, you're in trouble. And in these projects, we know the schedules aren't getting any shorter, right? We know the PPAs, you're lucky to get a PPA, right? And if you do, you've got to move on it, right? You got to get your transformers ordered 3-4 years in advance now, right? Yeah. It's incredible. But so you do all that back end work, you get the PPAs, you get these transformers, and then come to find out that you're restricted on your permitting and the optimal times to perform the work. I mean, how do we hit these goals as an industry? And really that the government is putting in place, and we as a company are putting in place, these 10, 15, 20-year goals with those types of restrictions, right? It's a real challenge.
Yeah, and that's like, that it was probably one of the most eye-opening things about, I always built in North Carolina, South Carolina, and I didn't realize that permitting could be so challenging until, started building in Virginia and then seeing what's going on in Pennsylvania. And it's just like, what, how are we supposed to get this stuff done, man? Like, the project was supposed to kick off 6 months ago. We still don't have permits,
Yep.
type stuff. And it's like, I guess we as an industry need to get back to maybe like some kind of grassroots movement in which we start, really helping these local communities understand that we're here to help. We're here to be an economic driver, a company that provides local jobs. But we can't do that if you don't let us build it,
Right.
Well, a lot of that too is we've used up quite a bit of the land. It's just mow and go, nice and flat, square, solar size. So as we build in challenging areas, and there's more, requires more civil and erosion control measures. So it's definitely a challenge. So the more of that you have, the longer permitting takes.
Yep. Yeah.
Speaking
and
of
then your MV.
Then your MV.
Oh,
what?
sorry. Go ahead, Zach.
No.
I was just going to say, and then your connection. Love this delay. Then you've got your connection of those arrays too, Sean. To your point, it's no longer do you get the mow and go, so you've got to timber the trees, right? But then a lot of these parcels are so chopped up. I mean, one of our projects in Pennsylvania, from top to bottom, is 12 miles on the public roads, and it's just left, right. It's wild, man. And if you look at the site plan, the electrical site plan, the MV corridors, I can't even tell you how many miles. Our buddy James over there at Mill Creek would know, but 40 to 50 miles of MV.
It's got to be. Has to be.
It's crazy.
It's insane.
It's just insane. And so that's the other challenge too, right? It's not just getting on the land; it's connecting everything too.
Yeah, and we had last year, with some of the droughts, we couldn't burn, so we had to chip everything on site. So immediately you're increasing the cost and timeline of civil work. So it's always a challenge.
Yep. And these are heavy civil projects that we just happen to be putting solar on top of. That's the mentality, right?
Yep.
We do heavy civil and just put solar on top and a bunch of cable in there.
Yeah, really. I mean, it coming from my background in which it was residential, and then when I got to the utility side of things, just being focused mainly on mechanical and electrical and, just going out in the field every day doing my inspections, coming back. It wasn't until like I reached this level in my career in which the mechanical, the electrical, that is such a tiny piece of this whole puzzle.
Right.
The amount of earth that has to be moved on some of these projects. Like this project in Pennsylvania, first time I've ever had that we've had blasting on a project that I've been a part of. That was. Have you seen that in person yet, Riley?
Yeah, it's incredible.
Oh my God. I became a child. I was like, that was the coolest thing ever. Just to see an entire hillside just move, 20 feet in the air and then just settle.
Yep.
What an incredible thing to witness in person. And that's what I interrupted you with a minute ago is like, how do you even know how to go about permitting that, and what are the extra permitting precautions that are in place when it comes to having to do blasting like that on a site?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that comes down to county by county and DEP regulations for that particular state and whatnot, right? So we were fortunate where we're building now that the subcontractors that performed it were local to the area. They knew all the levers to pull to make it happen quickly, right? So I don't. It's definitely not a one-stop shop, I guess, is what I'm getting at. But just the decision to perform blasting activity was one of those things where it got thrown out there, and me and my personality was like, well, yeah, let's that makes sense. Let's get it. Let's look into this. Let's get some pricing. Whatever it takes, kind of mentality. And sure enough, that's the route we wound up taking. But it's crazy to see, and but it opens the door to be able to build in these tough areas, right? It's one thing to go in with the expectation that you're drilling pier foundations, right, or pre-drilling every hole for your piles. Kind of focusing. When you think heavy rock, at least in my personal experience, when I thought of heavy rock on these solar arrays, it was always first thing that comes to mind, first thing that we talked about was structural, right? Structural. But again, back to that civil first mentality on these projects, we weren't prepared on these projects that we all inherited, right? For the amount of rock that we're pulling out of the ground. And had we gone in knowing, hey, we need to blast this rock, we need to be prepared for this, and we kind of just flew in blindly on both projects, right? I think it's a different conversation. It opens up a different corridor for the work, right? And we would have been able to plan a little bit better, probably gotten the projects civilly built a little bit faster, things like that, right? Yeah. And all the while work with the conservation district on the front end, right? Like, hey, we're not pivoting to blasting mid-project like we did. Here's the plan, and we're talking about this a year before mobilization.
Yeah, one thing that we've done.
Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, sorry, talking over you again. This is payback for all the times where.
Yeah, that's I love it. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Bring it on. Cut me off for the rest of the show.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. One thing that our company has done, we try to get the civil permits as early as possible, and then sometimes you have to get the building and electrical to just start civil work, but we try to mobilize the civil crew early, and especially with long lead times on things like transformers and other medium voltage equipment, then we can start civil early, and if there's any delays, then it doesn't delay electrical, and we can start getting some grass to grow. So that's one way that we've tried to mitigate that, just because it's difficult to try to overlap, especially if you crush them all together, and you're like, civil has to be done this day, and then electrical comes in. So.
Yeah, good luck. And then driving piles in the mud without any grass.
Right.
Nah.
Yeah, it just makes it worse. Yeah.
Yep, that's how you lose your money as a mechanical contractor.
Oh,
Yep.
man. Yeah. Yeah. It's, like I was just sitting here just a minute ago thinking about, like, the drastic difference between what we're building in Pennsylvania right now and what we're building in Maine right now. And comparing that to what we were doing just a couple years ago, like you were in Mississippi, Sean and I were in North Carolina, South Carolina, like, oh my gosh, like these projects in South Carolina, I'll never forget. There was something weird going on in the corner of a field. I knew something wasn't quite right just by the way, like, everybody was standing around. And so, like, I've got to see what's going on. I go over to that corner, and, like, there's a pile driver over there, and there's a dude operating the pile driver in hip deep mud. Like, somehow was able to track that pile driver through that kind of mud and was getting piles driven in. Yeah, dude. And it's like, I don't know that this is going to handle any kind of load, first off. Secondly, like, I'm pretty sure we're violating some kind of safety something here. We have to.
Yeah,
and now
I
you look
see the
at,
push
like,
pull test on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can do it by hand. You know?
Like, drive time was 10 seconds. Just
Yeah, exactly. You just put the hammer on top, and it just
so
goes
much easier this way, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, we should do it all like this. And now you look at, like, what we're having to do in Pennsylvania, where, like, there is just a massive drilling effort that has to go into getting these piles in, and there's still a significant remediation process that goes in, with that. And so, as an industry, we just have this knack of finding the most difficult places to build in and making it work. And it's like, it's one of the most rewarding things I've found, is just being able to pull off these difficult projects, step back and go, yeah, that's a good facility, and that,
Yep.
like, despite the challenges we had to work through. So I do want to kind of switch gears while we've still got some reasonable time left. You guys had, you both of you guys worked your way up to project management from different, trajectories. And, like, I always wanted to become a project manager, but wasn't willing to take on that extra stress that I perceive in your careers. Plus, I love being able to stay focused on, like, the quality side of things, focusing on the actual product. I love that. So I've never actually made that jump into project management, but I think it's a great career for a lot of people, and I would love to hear from, both you guys, really, like, for somebody like me, or somebody that really wants to get into project management, what kind of recommendations do you have for preparing yourself to take on that kind of role in the solar industry?
Well, I'll go first, Sean, if you don't mind. I think the most important thing, especially if it's somebody that is new to the industry just in general, is get in the field and learn how to build. Be a builder first, and that will help. That will save you 10 to 20 years in your career path if you just go learn how to build first. So if that means you're starting off as an assistant project manager based in the field and on site, do it. Do it for a couple of years, right? Like, get per diem, go live on site, go be in the trailer every day, learn it, right? And that, to me, it helped me certainly with my career fast track, and I couldn't suggest that more for anybody that is interested young in their careers and getting into project management.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and we've talked about that before. Some of the best leaders in the solar industry are guys who started out in the field and worked their way up. Just you have a better understanding of how it all works and goes together. I think the biggest thing, you just have to be willing to take it on. It's, you can kind of get in a role and just cruise along and live in a comfort zone, but as a project manager, it's relentless and you're just getting stuff thrown at you all the time. So you have to think that all the things you're inspecting, the project managers have worked to get that to site, and they've been working on it to figure out the lead times to get it there at the right time and make sure it's not there too early or too late. So it's there's a lot to it, but really you just kind of have to step into that role just to know what it's about.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Riley didn't expect to be a project manager, but
No, I would have never. If you would have told me 5 years ago that I'd be doing what I'm doing today, I would have never believed you, right? I wouldn't. Gosh, it's 2023 now. You would have told me when I was graduating from App 7 years ago that or starting at App, I guess, a decade ago, right? That I'd be in the construction industry, the solar construction industry, doing what we're doing. It's just crazy to think about. And then to see the growth in our industry over the last decade is just incredible at the same time, right? We didn't even know these opportunities existed 10 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. No, really, my big aspiration when I actually decided to go to community college to figure this career out was to become this technician. At the very beginning, my vision was like, I want to be a wind technician. That sounds cool. I like working with my hands. I'll be out there and the country, which is where I wanted to be. I love the idea of like driving big trucks on dirt roads. Like I'm that redneck, right? Like I love that. And so that was the big aspiration at that point in time. So now, I'm in like this role in which I have to look after portfolios up and down the East Coast. Never could have imagined, that it would turn into something like this. And like, man, for people that, love a challenge, love being involved in pretty much every aspect of a project, like project management is where that's at from my perspective at least. And like with all the challenge that comes with being a project manager, there's a lot of reward in having that role, because like it's great to be on site, but you don't have to be on site every day. And like the reason why I bring that up is, man, I had no clue what you're doing right now. And I need you to tell us, if you don't mind, what you have set out to do for the next year or so.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't believe I didn't mention it to you, because I think just about everyone on our broader team knows. But probably about a year ago, my wife Lauren and I started kind of conceptualizing renting our house out and doing a kind of full year on the road type thing, especially just with the opportunity to work from home. And keep in mind too, at that time I was still with Signal, and the opportunity still kind of was available, right? But nonetheless, took the remote position with AES kind of with that's one of the things that, this will be even easier to do. All that to say, we signed tenants at our home in Chattanooga, and March to March, right? So they're there for a full year, and so we're a full year on the road. We're literally today got to Sean, thank you. Prescott. Okay, yeah. Thank you for the heads up. We already. It just does not roll off the tongue like that. But
no, yeah,
yeah. Looks like Prescott, Arizona, right? So we're here for 2 months. We'll about 6 weeks through April, and then we're going to do 2 months in Oregon, 2 months in Washington, month in Montana, month in Idaho, 2 months in Colorado, 2 months in Salt Lake.
Incredible, man.
Yeah, we've got all of our Airbnbs booked too, and that's how we're doing it. We're just, Airbnb is great. They, maybe a soft plug for Airbnb here, especially for those that will be traveling to their future projects. But they give you that month discount, right? So that's wonderful, and we actually found too that you can negotiate with the owners of the property, like, hey, instead of just booking your dates and then getting the discount, you can say, this is at least what we did, went in and kind of, hey, here's kind of our price range, here's our dates, like a year out, but we're willing to book right now, type of thing, and you're 100% on that. So yeah, it's going to be fun. It's I'm not looking forward to the 4 a.m. wake up call tomorrow morning to start work with you guys on the East Coast at 7, but nonetheless, fortunately, I'm an early riser, so it won't be too hard. But that's about an hour and a half earlier than I normally like to open my eyes.
God, yeah, that you're getting on my schedule now. I started waking up at 4 a.m. once I realized, having a daughter means I'm not going to get anything done if I don't start waking up early.
Yep. I hear you.
But that's
we found out, we didn't even realize, we thought maybe this was going to be like a 2-hour transition, and then when we get to Oregon, Washington, it'd be that 3-hour transition. Well, Arizona does not account for daylight savings, right? And today is daylight savings, so you guys jumped forward an hour and we stayed the same. So right into it, 3-hour difference.
Perfect.
Really
Perfect.
Fun.
Yeah, that's like hearing Asher on the 8 a.m. call for it's like, good Lord, man, you just do that 5 days a week, every week. Like, I do it because I choose to, but that is a part of your job. Like, you have to, but on the flip side of that, he's acting as a project manager for this really big, really interesting project, and he's doing it from California, whereas the project's in Pennsylvania. So it's one of those, perks of the solar industry and the project management role is like you can do that. And what an incredible thing that you guys have set out on. I'm so proud of y'all for, number one, thinking about even trying to do that and then actually setting out to do it. Like, that is impressive, man, and sounds really cool. And I really hope you keep me up to speed on all the different travels that you have out there.
Yeah, definitely will. And please, anybody, or you guys too, any recommendations while we're out here, we're all ears. We're doing as much exploring as possible.
Hell yeah, as you should. Well, Sean, I mean, I'd be happy to sit here and listen to you two talk project management shop, but we've also been rolling for quite a while. Do you have anything else?
I think that's it. Yeah, it's nice to hear your story and actually get to meet you. So, yeah, Zach's told me about you, so it's, good to put a face to the name.
Yeah.
And you got a great beard, too. So.
Yeah. Oh, it's perfect beard. Like, him and Cyrus standing next to one another, man, it makes me so sad. Because I used to have a pretty gnarly beard at one point, and I will never have the patience to go back through that again. But yeah, dude, watching Sean and Riley, or watching Riley and Cyrus stand next to one another is like, God, that is a lot of just glorious beard right there.
Yeah,
right. Buddy, sorry for cutting you off there. I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to sit down with us, man. It means a lot, and certainly an interesting story from bomb sniffing dogs to blowing up civil work. Like, you've had an explosive career, and it's super interesting to unpack that, man. So I appreciate you doing that with us.
Thank you, Zach. And thank you, Sean. Sean, great to meet you as well. Guys, I really enjoyed this. This was fun. I am a fan of the podcast. I've really enjoyed it. I've listened to every episode. Really appreciate what you guys are doing and the concept behind it, too. So excited for more, and really proud of you guys, too, and doing it, right? Not just, actually making it happen is really cool.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate it.
Kudos.
Well, I appreciate it, yeah.
Yeah. Love to have you back on. Maybe we could do like an App State reunion show or something like that. Just unpack like all the different career paths that came out of that school and all the perks of going to that school.
Gosh, you know what, man? That would probably be something that App would be like they'd get behind. But we're getting close to needing like an auditorium.
Sure.
For that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there are a lot of really solid people came out of that one. So yeah, man, if you'd be interested in coming back for that, we'd love to have you. We'll make that happen.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot.
All right. Well, that's all we got for tonight. Riley, if you hang out for 1 second, I'm going to end this, but we appreciate y'all hanging out with us, and we will see you next week.